Hey, it's Katie. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about Yellow Brick War, which is the third installment in the Dorothy Must Die series by Danielle Page. I gave this book a 6.7 out of 10, which I know was kind of low and I feel kind of guilty about it, but there are just some issues that I have with the way that it's written, although I do think it's a good book and I did enjoy reading it, I didn't have a bad time, it's just not my favorite. If you haven't read anything from the Dorothy Must Die series, they're all set in the world of this girl named Amy Gum, who is a girl from Kansas. Not really much going on in Kansas. She doesn't really like life there. Her mom is kind of not really around, not really helpful when she is around. Everyone at school is awful, your stereotypical miserable story. And then a tornado comes, and just like Dorothy, she's brought to Kansas, where it turns out that Dorothy decided to come back after returning to Kansas, and now she's kind of a dictator and has this tyranny over Oz. So it's this crazy story. Amy kind of joins forces with the Wicked, which is Glinda, who is also Evil's evil twin, but she's not really evil. It's a really interesting idea, and they're really good books, and she's a good writer. I genuinely enjoy them. In this particular book, we ended in the last one where Amy ended up back in Kansas to her displeasure, and it's she has to kind of live in Kansas again to try to find a way for her and Knox and the three witches who kind of run the Wicked organization to try to get back to Oz and stop Dorothy and Glinda and the wizard and all of this crazy stuff that they're kind of in the middle of. And Amy has to go back to high school with all these people who've tortured her for years, so she's not super thrilled. I definitely thought this book was an upswing from book 2. Book 2 was definitely my least favorite thus far in the series, and this one definitely made me remember all the things that I did enjoy about book 1. I really enjoyed seeing Amy interact with her old life, and kind of you could tell how much she had changed and grown while she had been in Oz during the first 2 books, based on the way she kind of interacted with all the characters that she had from book 1, and I don't know, it was kind of frustrating to see the way she interacted with her mom, but also she has years and years of pent up rage and frustration, and just because her mom's being nice now does not really mean anything in the scheme of things. So I can definitely understand why she was acting that way towards her mom. It's totally fair. It's just frustrating when you're hoping that her mom is staying on her side and staying sober for good this time. But it was really great. Amy learned a lot more about magic and herself and the way that Oz fit with Kansas and why there was such a parallel, why her and Dorothy had both been brought to Oz from Kansas, and it was really nice to have an explanation, because in a lot of books like this we don't always get that, it's kind of just that's how it is. There just is a magic portal, or these worlds just are connected, and Danielle Page did a really great job of explaining why it was this way and how it had gotten and why it had stayed. So I really enjoyed that, and it kind of let us understand a lot more of what had happened before the chaos that we had kind of just been dropped into with book 1. It was, we kind of landed and Dorothy's evil and everything's a mess and the magic is being sucked out of the land, and we didn't get to see how all of that had taken place. So this book really allowed us to find out, in looking back in hindsight, how all of that had gotten to be the way that it was. So I really enjoyed that. I have this really hard time with the Dorothy Must Die series because they feel like they're intended for an older, high school age audience, they're set with a high school protagonist, and like the way that they're written and the curse words and just like the speech and context. Like it sounds like something that would be like a high school type book, but the way, just kind of the things that happen, um, the characters and like the way they interact and just like the plot in general and some of the things, just they have a very middle school book type vibe to me, and it's one of my biggest issues with this series because I can't really tell, and it's different, I don't hold, if I'm reading a middle school book, I don't expect it to have the same qualities and vocabulary and like prose as I do a book that's intended for an older audience. If I'm talking about the Emily Winsnap series or the Boxcar Children, I'm not going to be thinking the same way that I am when I'm going to be talking about Throne of Glass or Harry Potter or, anything that's just kind of not really for like younger kids. So it's just really hard for me to contextualize these books because I can't tell where they're supposed to fit in, and it's a problem for me, and that's a lot of why I don't like this series as much as I think that I could. This is one of those series that I think the first book definitely was my favorite, and it was really interesting and it drew me in, but the second two have felt like very drawn out, and the rules just keep changing, which is, it's hard. Like, there's a time and place where you can kind of switch things up and everything is different than what you thought it was, but it just feels like the circumstances haven't really changed, but the rules about how things work have. And I don't know, it's just really frustrating because I feel like within these last two books, like I've read 2 whole books, but not a whole lot has happened. And I don't know, as a reader, it's kind of frustrating to me. But despite all of those issues, I do really enjoy this series because it's kind of a nice, lighter tone and an easier read that still has a lot of the elements of literature that I do really enjoy reading. It's, I don't know, like it's like a nice break in between some of the darker series that are really prominent in YA right now that are really good, but just sometimes you need to take a break so that your brain can kind of calm down a little bit. So that's going to be it for the spoiler-free section. We're about to delve into all things spoilery. If you haven't read this book, go ahead and check it out if you're feeling it. I'm going to leave the link below, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, here we go with the spoilers. So this book really kind of changed the game for this whole series. There was kind of like a way things were going, and this just kind of like, and kind of just veered us onto a different path. And like now, the path that we were on before is not a possibility. Like we could have gone anyway, but now we're kind of, this is what's gonna happen. I really liked the Ozma Pete explanation and kind of like finally understanding what in the hell was going on with that. And it was really fantastic to see Madison kind of growing up and like how becoming a mother had matured her and made her like treat people a little bit better, but also it didn't change like her fundamental characteristics. Like she still stood up for herself a lot. She was still not afraid to be a bitch if that's what it took, because she was trying to get things done. She's trying to kind of just live her life, and she's not going to let anyone step on her, push her around, or like derail her from the path that she wants. And while obviously in the way she treated Amy, that was not good, and like there are a lot of negative situations in which she has done so, but in this case where she's standing up for Amy and standing up for herself when the principal is literally trying to kick her out of school because she had a kid, and she's like, no, I'm not about to let that happen. I really respected it, and it was really nice. And her and Amy kind of growing up and being mature around each other, which I'm sure obviously was harder for Amy because she was the one who'd been hurt in the situations, but definitely, I don't know, I just think it took like a lot of maturity that they didn't have previously to kind of get over their issues. So that was definitely something. I had a really hard time trying to figure out how to feel about Polychrome because she was like really genuine, but also kind of acted like a child sometimes. Even for an Oz royal, who they all, between Ozma's lunacy and then Lulu and everything, like the royals in Oz are just a little immature. But I don't know, Polychrome, it was hard because you couldn't tell. A lot like with Lulu, like she has this like outer like trying to get you to kind of like loosen up and be her friend, but like also she does have that serious depth and that she can pull out on a whim. But it doesn't seem like the other side of her is necessarily fake. Like it does seem like another facet of her personality. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I wasn't sure if I liked Polychrome a whole lot. But like her death was really upsetting and kind of unsettling. In addition to like Glinda and Glamora, who are now like in the same body, which is definitely going to pose problems in book 4, which is out, and I don't own it yet, but I will, and we will see. So that's going to be frustrating. Both this book and The Wicked Revise, I feel like it could have been one book. I don't even know if one between the two of them, maybe 2, 3, and 4 could have been one book, or even 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't feel like it needed to be split up, and like the way books 2 and 3 were split was a very inconvenient thing, and it didn't feel like a very natural split. Like, you know, like sometimes it's okay, like at the end of book 1, I feel like that was fair. Like, okay, circumstances changed, this huge thing just happened, bam. Okay. But like after book 2, it didn't feel like a logical point to just end the story and wait, like it wasn't a natural break, and I'm really not feeling the 4 books. Like I like the story, and I think that Danielle Page is definitely onto something and has this great plot and really great characters, and I do like her writing, but I feel like with this particular series, it was just not intended to be drawn out and broken up like this. It's hard because it is so drawn out. It's hard to feel like as pulled and affected by the drama that's happening with this huge war that's going on, and with like Amy and Knox not knowing what's going on with their relationship, and then they can't have a relationship, and it's harder to feel impacted by it when I'm barely getting through the books, because it just seems like a lot of fluff and filler. Like the whole book feels like filler, which is it's hard. I hate, because I don't want to say any writing is like bad writing, and I don't think that it is bad writing. It just, the way it's formatted just doesn't really work for me. I was really intrigued by the introduction of a new villain, and I really liked how Dorothy's demise was like of her own doing instead of being by something else. Because we have this problem, I feel like, a lot in literature, where we'll have this character who's new to the world, new to magic, new to wielding their powers or fighting or whatever it is that we're discussing. And they kind of show up, and there's this evil person who's been ruling over everyone and making them miserable for years and years, and this person, who has no idea what they're doing, somehow defeats this older, more powerful, more experienced person with decades or years or whatever it is, depending on the circumstance, of like experience with that medium of fighting, whether it be magic or actual like sword fighting and things like that. And it's just very unrealistic and very frustrating. So it was really nice that that's not what happened in the series. Like I loved seeing that, because I think that that's true, you know, of most people who are villains. Like they end up being their own demise. I don't know if you guys have ever played Risk, but most of the time the person who's doing really, really well suddenly loses, and it's not because someone else does particularly well or becomes particularly powerful. It's because they are trying too hard, and then they spread themselves so thin and they just collapse inward. And whether it's a board game or a book character or real life, I think that that's a very true sentiment that was echoed in Dorothy like falling apart because of her magic, and I really, really enjoyed that. I think it's going to be really cool to see this new villain. I don't know how I feel about him yet, because right now he's just kind of annoying, and I don't really respect him as a villain that much, because he just kind of appeared out of nowhere. So, but we'll see where book 4 takes us. I'm really interested. I think I was really encouraged because I did like this book better than the second one, so I'm assuming and hoping that I'll like the 4th one better than this one. It'll probably be back to like the first one level, where I really like genuinely had a great time reading it, instead of just kind of being happy and okay with the story. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. Thanks so much for watching.